Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Taboo, The Nuance, and everything conservative parents don't want you listening to. Today I have a very special guest, Amber.
Hello!
How do you feel being here?
Yeah, it's exciting to be here.
Today's episode is about pulling away from the mainstream, and the reason why I invited Amber for this episode is because we had a lot of sort of bonding experiences, doing stuff that maybe not most people do for fun, and then we've had some fun experiences in the van, which we'll get right into right now. So, Amber, do you care to explain the van?
Yeah, sure. Throw right in there. So, I live in a van. It's one that someone else converted, and I bought it off them. I got a really good deal on it, so I was like, well, why not if the opportunity is there. And I've been, the last like 3 or 4 years, I guess I've been slowly getting more annoyed about having to pay rent. Yeah, because I think it's so, when you're not earning much money and then like 1/3 or 2/3 of your income is rent, and you're thinking, I'm paying for someone else's holiday.
Well, I should be on holiday.
Yeah, their whole life, and so it has a little bit of a kind of parasitic nature to it, and so I felt a bit resentful of that. But I was like, you know what, I get it. We're all trying to survive, so no personal digs to landlords. But I'm like, I just want to step out of it. So I was like, how can I do that? I lived on my allotment for a bit.
Let's talk about the allotment.
Yeah, so that was an experiment, and it was interesting. My allotment's like quite large, and I've built.
I don't think many people know what allotments mean, by the way.
Yeah, so an allotment it's like a rented vegetable garden.
It's a fun way to put it.
I can't remember how many square meters it is, but it's big enough. So I built a geodesic dome on there because I thought, well, yeah, you know, it's summer. I want to get as much work in as possible, get the veg growing. It's all a vision, but that was a bit cold. So when the van came on,
some warmth, some van hugs.
Exactly, it's cozy in there, and it's, you know, I think a lot of people can relate to that, because I'd like my own house and I like to own my property, put up a shelf if I want to, at least just know that I'm expanding my growth and setting up a life for myself, and maybe I'll get a better van, you know, just be on.
What sparked the idea of like a van out of everything? Like, you know, because people like do like communal houses, people do like all sorts of things. How did the idea of like a van come to you, and like how did you approach it? How was picking it out? I mean, you said you found one for a good price, but about the other questions.
So it was quite a process. I mean, I looked into bloody airships and geodesic domes on allotments and all of this mad stuff. So I went straight to like the grand utopian vision, and had to kind of have this horribly sad process of coming back down to earth, which is quite sad. Oh, I can't afford land and whatever. So it's just this process of weighing up the cons. There's so many different alternative ways of living. Like you say, communal housing. They've all got pros, they've all got cons. Do you like housemates? Do you not like housemates? Do you want to be constantly on the road, or do you want some stability? I've always been a travelling kind of person. I love like just being able to drive out to the Peak District, wake up, swim in the water, even though that's apparently illegal in the UK. Yeah, so yeah, it's just insane. I was speaking to some Danish people about this, and they're like, what do you mean? Like, I've been stopped by the police for swimming in the reservoir. I'm just there for like my health.
Wait, I'm so confused. Yeah. Why?
Well, for one, it's owned, so it's private. So Margaret Thatcher, I think it was.
I'm trying so hard not to cuss right now.
Yeah.
This happens.
I think it was
on the show.
Margaret Thatcher was sold off like the water companies. It used to be public, a bit like British Gas, British Rail, British everything. All got privatised. And so now you have companies owning reservoirs, so that's technically
disgusting.
private land, so it's technically
That's disgusting.
trespassing.
That's
And police actually
horrendous.
go out, and they say it's to protect you because so people do die from cold water exposure. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it, but also teach people.
Yeah,
like,
it's raising awareness. Like,
yeah, exactly.
people die from all sorts of things.
Yeah.
People could die from like some illness that might have seen light because of other stuff in their body. Like,
teach people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get people like me resentful.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, "Fuck you." Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry. I can't.
I've been trying to hold it in. So someone had to sleep.
Yeah. I'm going in the water though. That's been my attitude for a while. Like, no, I will swim in the water, and that actually is how I get in bad situations.
But it's understandable. I mean, if you have like reservoirs owned by private companies, you can even use them like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and the police, they actually come.
That's actually crazy.
Yeah. But
I feel like there are like more like prior issues.
Yeah.
Do you not think that?
Yeah. And then the police.
It's just my
come out
opinion.
there.
I mean, what? I never said that.
And they have dogs as well.
That's actually crazy. Like, please.
Yeah.
To think that they're like people that are like violencing and killing other people, and then it's like here you are like getting stopped for swimming in the water.
Yeah. But it's great because you can like go skinny dipping, so you're also doing like indecent exposure at the same time.
Oh, is it? So it's a 2 for 2.
Yeah. So you can come out and just like as you stare the police in the eyes, walk out of the water, tits out. It's a revolutionary act. And then your van's packed on the side as well, so you're also like a gypsy or something. So it's just all the flags.
Oh.
I am a walking flag.
Oh my god. Oh, that's crazy. It's so much to say and nothing to say all at once. I wanted to ask, so now that you've been, how long have you been living in a van, and what aspects of your life and what aspects of your withdrawal to society have you noticed since you changed your way of living?
Oh my god, it's been such a journey. So it's only been like 3 months now, but obviously I was like in an allotment before. I lived in an anarchist free town in Christiania for a bit in Copenhagen.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, that I love. That sounds like where I would thrive. I'm moving when I get the money.
Yeah, so I'll take you there. Connections. Anyway, so the question was, how did that affect me when I moved into the van? Like, so many things that I just didn't expect, like the waking up on a street and being like, I'm not living in a van, I'm not homeless, don't report me, kind of feeling of like, it does make you feel a bit like you want to hide away because you know that not everyone understands, and I think it's great, but I also know that there's always people that are a bit scared, and whenever you're the minority in any situation, it's like you know that I'm not going to be the one that wins in this situation. If someone wants to report me, I'm probably going to be pushed away, so that's hard. And
that's awful.
Yeah, it's sad. And yeah, things like the Kill the Bill Act was like really scary.
Can you tell us more about that?
That was it 2 years ago, where I think there's been more acts. I don't study politics or whatever, but so they've brought in like more police powers, and it's a lot about trespassing and land use, and it targets like the traveller community, and
which I can give a lot on since I'm studying currently, currently studying.
Really?
Yeah, I'm currently studying the travellers, Romani, Sinti. Yeah, and how they've been ostracized, and how they've been murdered, and how they've been persecuted in every way, shape, or form, and are seen as like dirty thieves. But back to your point.
Yeah, and that's the thing, as a van lifer, I have so many privileges, but I also get roped into that whole thing as well. But I think then I've got the privilege of being like, oh no, you're just like a middle class person that's decided to get a van or something, and they're like, so I can present as that, and it's like, oh, it's fine. But it's like it's the same thing, like.
But it's messed up because of the racial injustices and the stereotypes that have been going for centuries.
Because if I had if I had children and then they lived in a van, I would become, that would become a culture. So we're really one and the same in that sense, but also very different, obviously. But what's so sad about it is, like, when I talk to people about this issue, is like, people will say things like, yeah, but there's this violence and they leave waste, and it's all the same things about van life is, and obviously there's always going to be a few, but there's also the thing of like, if you make someone's lifestyle illegal by like saying, no, you can't park here, you can't park there, there's no free land, it's all private, it's all for the big landlords, it's all for the richest people, you're gonna get anger and you're gonna get frustration.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, I understand the tension, because it's not like anyone's perfect and there are situations, but it's like, have some empathy for how that's happened. And why, like,
when this is something we talked about, of like, if let's say someone from, like, the general rule of straight white male doing a certain action, hurting someone, I don't know, robbing something, it's like they're seen as the individual. But then if it's, for example, the travelers, the Romani, the Sinti, the black people, the whatever, it's seen as, all black people, all Romani, all travelers, or all, and Romani and Sinti is like interchangeable with travelers, but there are many different groups within those, which is why I'm trying to go back and forth. But yeah, it's like the whole group is just kind of under this umbrella of like, okay, y'all are dirty, y'all are thieves, y'all are doing this, y'all are doing that, you're causing these issues, you're causing all that those issues, and it's like one person is suddenly like the stereotype for the whole group, and most ironically, it's like it did not start off like that, historically speaking, but a lot of those people were pushed into certain situations generationally via the socioeconomic conditions that they've been put under time and time again. So then you get certain results, and then it's like one action from one member or two or five suddenly represents major communities and thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people. And it's like, I don't know what the population of people living in vans are in certain areas or whatever, but the fact that like, because of the mishaps of 1, 2, or 5, now you have laws sort of like ostracizing or preventing some others from even living in a way that is affordable to them, in a way that maybe they're unable to live outside of. It's not fair.
Yeah. And it's so difficult to manage the complexity of it as well. It's like when you have, everyone's an individual, but you also have these themes and cultures, and that becomes culture over time, and it's like, whoa, how do you break it down at that point as well? Like, because we're not different, we're all human, we're all the same, but yet we do have to respect each other's differences as well and make room for that. It's such this dance, and I feel like there's two things that come to my mind when we're talking about this. Is like this happens when we're really distant, we can't communicate, so that we have to see another group as an other, right? But then also it's like, in trying to bridge that gap, it's messy as well, because then it's like, right, okay, I'm gonna go in and speak to the traveling community, and then you're gonna go colonize it, so there's this like messy way of like trying to come together and communicate,
but not step on each other's uniqueness. I think the important thing is to honor differences, but not let them stand as barriers between one another. Like
Yeah.
it's like we have all these differences and they're like seen like as obstacles. For me, it's kind of like about kind of picking it up off the floor and holding it and like handing it kindly and being like, I validate your identity and how you're different from me and how, you know, historically and traditionally and culturally you've gone through XYZ. And then you hand me my thing that was on the floor that was as an obstacle between us, and you validate my parts and all of that. And then it's like, instead of it being something that like will get us to trip as we're walking towards each other, it's rather something that we're like gracefully handing, you know, back and forth, and learning from each other in respectful ways, cultural appreciation, not appropriation. You know, I think it's just all about how you navigate it. And I think like what stands between most people is the system. Like it all goes back to things that are much larger and much more fundamental, unfortunately, to life. Historically speaking, especially I have to bring it up, colonization. You know, there's so many differences and painful experiences and stuff like that, and like so many groups of people in society are pinned against each other, when in reality it's the capitalist major system around us that is like quite literally between like between countries. It's worldwide, and it's so fundamental to most countries, and people are hurt by it or because of it, or the hurt is transferred from one group to another, and it's all these interwebs of issues and obstacles when we could just coexist.
And we've got to find out like how to bridge those like gaps. And I think a big thing, like you mentioned just then, like that trauma, like there's someone that I'd like to share that's called Resma Menakem, and he talks about he's got this amazing book, My Grandmother's Hands, how racialized trauma affects our relationships or something like that. Paraphrase, can't remember the subtext, but yeah, he talks about that lineage of trauma, and it's almost, it blows your mind to think about how this interaction we're having right now impacts the rest of our day, and how this day impacts the rest of my year, and then that's impacted from the way my mum spoke to me when I was 2, and the language I've come to use, and then how that lineage. And so it's made me ask myself, what is whiteness? Where does it come from? What is this? What are the themes? There's like a few themes, like a sense of lack, a sense of like needing soothing from something else. It's not enough, and I think that's something that a lot of humans experience. I need more, you know, this thirst, consumption. And I'm like, where? So I'm trying to go back and back and back, and going through the history of it all, the politics, the sociology. But if you go all the way back, you come to like your nervous system, and it's this, and that's what Resma Menakem talks about, this sense of like constriction and release, and how that happens so fast it completely beats the like logical, rational mind. It's our most ancient mind, like at the brainstem. And so in those seconds before I've said something that's maybe not very well thought through, or I might have been walking, and I've come to notice this actually, like in myself, which is a very difficult thing to notice, is that I might be walking down the street. Before I've thought of anything, I've just witnessed the fact that I've seen maybe a black person walk down the street and look away and feel a weird sense in my stomach or something like that, and I'm like, wait, what? And I've not said anything, no words have been exchanged, and it's like, what is that? Why did that happen? Where did that come from? Like, who taught me that? It's probably my mum's taught me that, but these are the things that we can't, it's not so much in the words, because we talk a lot about the words that we're talking about and the language, and very important, but before that even happens, you have these breath holds, and so then it's like, well, what do we do about that? And it's finding those, this is according to Menachem, like those uncomfortable spaces. So we need our safe spaces where we're like, we feel seen and heard within our own communities. So, you know, maybe women, and then like cis women, and then you have all women, you know, and all, so you have spaces where everyone's coming together and they're challenging it and it brings up the trauma. And then you also have safe spaces for you to relate to people with your similar identity. So it's important to have both spaces, but in those challenging areas when we're talking about really tricky things and we've got different language and triggers, and there's things that we can do, such as breathing together, humming is really good, just like touch as well, and he talks about how that calms the nervous system down and moves from a sense of constriction to like, I think it's ventral vagal tone. I'm not qualified to talk, but read the book. I recommend.
Sounds like a good book. But I also wanted to just kind of flag the whole like cis women versus like women. I believe like all women should be part, like, you know, if you identify as a woman, you identify as a woman.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's quite important to like be inclusive and to not, you know, further ostracize more people from society, which unfortunately happens all the time around us.
Yeah.
So that's something to be like conscious of and stuff.
I think like on that, absolutely agree. I think also though, a lot of cis women and trans women like want a space to be together and it's all inclusive, but sometimes there's like some spaces where maybe just trans women want to get together and like discuss that experience, because that there is like something unique about that I can't understand. Same vice versa. But obviously there's some spaces where it's like, you know, like uni, you wouldn't make that like you know, it's got to be inclusive. So
yeah, I think it's really important to just have that option, especially because it's so like it's unfortunately, like globally speaking and stuff, it's such a major difficulty. But getting back to our topic, like, thank you for mentioning this book. I'm gonna like ask you for the name properly after as well. I think it's quite important. Like, I was also just watching a video earlier this week about like your nervous system and like just kind of training it and like, you know, like listening to it and calming it down and whatever, and starting your day like way earlier in order to give it that time to like calm it down and stuff like that. But back to pulling away from the mainstream. So I do know that you have like quite the spiritual side, and I wanted to ask, what does spirituality mean to you, and in what ways does connecting with yourself and with the earth and with the world through spirituality take you away from the mainstream, from societal constructs that we're so used to in our day-to-day lives?
Oh man, that's a great question.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think in this journey I've really seen this disconnection of myself and the earth, and all of that's happening at the same time as there's like this rampant history of sexism, racism. It all intercepts within this. And then what you have is this absolute crescendo crisis, climate change moment, where it's like, you know, coming of age into that, as I'm sure you understand, and probably a lot of people listening, is insane. But it seems to bring together all these issues. And so on a spiritual sense, it's like I've been on a path of like trying to reconnect to the ground, but literally that's meant that I've taken my shoes off at points and just walked barefoot, and like so many layers of like, yeah, what happens if I just take my shoes off, and feeling the weight of like the difference of like people looking at you and like, what are you doing, and like that. I find that I'm resisting it because I just want to be normal, but I also want to be like, no, I feel a really strong pull to this other direction of like working with the soil and stepping into my more authentic self, which is like dancing and wild and barefoot. But this duality, I'm always conflicted by it.
Yeah, so am I, so much. I actually feel like crying right now.
Yeah.
Like genuinely. Even earlier when you were speaking, like I was tearing up. It's the first time this happens on the podcast. It's like, I don't know, like there's just so much of like life and like humanity and like existence that's supposed to be like a thing, but like we're placed in such a world where like we don't even get that, and it's like sometimes like you lose track of like what's important, and then like just, you know, it's, I feel like if I was living a more like grounded life within like I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to be like studying at this university and to be abroad and to have certain rights that I wouldn't have back home, let's say, and to have certain kinds of freedom, but like also it's like me subscribing to that same like system again, regardless of which country it's in, you know, and it feels like, you know, it's always like this like produce, you know, there's no value if like you're not being productive, and it's like I've internalized that so much and I try to let go of it every day, but it's like it's I'm shackled. It feels like I'm shackled, and I just so many times like I just want to run away. Which is why like the past couple of years, like when I was doing medicine, whatever, when I would be in a really bad place, I would just run to another city. And like I had the luxury of like being in a country where like Airbnbs were like cheap and stuff like that. Here it's crazy. I can't do it. I feel trapped. Plus I would run away to the sea. Like that's what would ground me, or I would go hiking. And like here there are mountains, but like just not having the sea. Like that's where like
I love the sea.
I love the sea. Like when I have like really sad moments, like after some of the most like traumatic things in my life, I would just head straight to the sea, you know? And to not have that here anywhere nearby, and then like to have it be like freezing and like not the sea I'm used to with like sand, it's like rocks, and it's like, you know, it's like,
and it's so cold.
Yeah, and it's like such a major element of my life and my being, and who I am is just not there. And like that, my connection with nature in that way is just I'm unable to like access that. So it's really difficult.
And that's something that so many people experience from like being pushed to Europe for whatever reason. It's not necessarily because that's what they want, but it's like maybe survival, or there's
trying to make it back home, trying to get like the degree that will actually get me in a job at a time where all my friends that graduated are not able to find a job, and I'm worried, and they're worried, and our parents are worried.
And it's not sustainable to have so many people picking up and going somewhere that really their soul might not want to go. Like you say, maybe, well, I don't know, but like I feel like the job and everything, I can see why lots of people might want to come to a different place where it's supposedly productive and progressive, apparently developed, apparently.
All these things is garbage, but it's like the name gets you somewhere in other countries. It's messed up, but
and then what that creates is like a complete unsustainable planet. You can't have everything like top heavy, like, oh, just push everything to Europe, take all the resources there. It doesn't make any sense. We need like local economies and
and like there needs to be treatment of the soils that were hurt and damaged and, you know, milked literally to their. Africa was the richest continent. Like I'm Egyptian, I'm from Africa, and like, you know, I have to seek stuff outside now when like supposedly like my continent was like one of the richest ever, if not the richest ever. And it's like there's so much hurt in that by itself. Like it's like the fact that like Egypt was like it was British. It was a British like colony for a while there, whatever. And now I have to come to the colonizer, and I'm paying. My dad is paying hella money for my fees, and then he's like putting some resentment onto me because he has to work harder abroad to continue to do that. And then, you know, I get this thing where like I'm feeling like so guilty and I'm feeling all this pressure, but at the same time I'm like, you know, I'm gonna do good with this opportunity, but at the same time sometimes life is not so kind, and then I'm worried that I'm not gonna produce, that I'm not gonna be enough to match up with all this money that was put into me, or these resources that were put into me. And it's like on one side it's like, yeah, you don't want to let it go to waste. The other side, it's like it's so much pressure to carry as a human being. And I know I'm not the only one. Like I know that especially with like Swana region, like Middle Eastern, Asian, etc. families, like as well, there's so much pressure to be perfect, to do so much. And you know, it's really difficult to like deal with the pressures of like I have to perform well all the time. Like even when my parents don't like because of certain recent changes in my life and whatever, they might like not say certain things or try not to put as much pressure, but it's like it's still there. I was grown up with it. Like I was grown up, that's not a word. I can't even I don't know what I'm saying, but I grew up with it. And like now it's just internalized. Like even if they're not saying it, like I'm feeling it.
Yeah, it's crazy how you internalize those words from like
yeah, it's crazy how like also like people or parents don't realize that like kids are like little clay balls that if you like just touch it, you're gonna leave a thumbprint, you're gonna leave a fingerprint.
Oh my God.
Like people don't realize that. They don't realize how much you're quite literally molding a human being. And like
and the pressure hurts as well. Like that's what's so sad about being a parent, is like just everything you do, because they're a pure person and your job is to try and maintain that. And you're probably gonna fail.
You fail miserably.
And that's horrifying
In many cases.
Yeah.
Like I think I know like maybe one like set of parents that like I think is like, okay, like y'all did like a solid job. The rest is like trauma. Like it's just I don't know. You think of like, do you know anyone around you that you think like you have like perfect parents? Like not perfect, okay.
Not
there's no perfect,
person.
but
I don't think it's possible. I think like that's what makes us who we are. So now I realise like I'm quite grateful to my parents because they've given me what makes me me, which is unfortunately in so many ways my trauma, but like that's why we're different. Otherwise we'd all be perfect. But it's really hard.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I'm not even aiming for perfect. I just want to be like fine,
stable.
So So what a great word, stable. I just want to. I crave that so hard, like just stability and contentment. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And like,
but we've got like work and
I just honestly, I always like fantasize about like living in the woods, like growing some you know, vegetables, having certain like pets and certain animals that I take care of, having like a beach on the side, and that's it.
I think that's what's driven so much of our history, is like wanting that like utopian vision, like, and I do it myself, like I want the woods and then I want like the woods behind the house, and then the market garden in the front, and I'm like, and then the horses to the east, and I'm, you know, planning something, and I realise it comes like, it's so ancient. It's like Eden, isn't it? Like we're all looking for that.
Yeah, well, not all. Honestly, I wish it was all. It's not all. The biggest problem is that it's not all. Like there's so much greed in the world, as you said like earlier in the episode, and like what's it called? There's so much. There's so much greed in the world, and like because people are not content with just like a little house and a little garden, you know, they want to destroy the forest, they want to take them down, they want to make stuff, they want to sell stuff, they want to make money, like it's all these crazy things. And it's like, you know, the gigantic house is not gigantic enough, and the other house in the other country and the other, you know, like it's like taking more and more and more and more and more than you need. And then it's like you have all this accumulated wealth, and then there are other people that like don't even know if they're gonna wake up in the morning to like a home, or if they're gonna be thrown off the street because they're a couple months late for their rent. Like, it's not fair. I need to check the time. Okay, 5 minutes over time. Okay. But yeah, I still want to go back to the topic of like pulling away. Like, to conclude, do you think that pulling away from the mainstream in such a major way of like your living, like where you wake up in the morning, where you go to bed at night, and then like the way that you live your life, depending like are affected by that rather, how, do you think, like, in conclusion, do you think it helps you nurture your soul? Does it not? Like, do the cons outweigh the pros? Do the pros outweigh the cons? How do you feel about it?
I think the main thing I've realised on this journey of like trying to find this utopia is that it doesn't exist, and what I'm really looking for is like not ultimately only possible to find within me a sense of peace within me and making time for me, but then at the same time I can change my external environment. So should I just give up completely? No, I'm still going to try and improve my external environment, but I'm trying to integrate both, where it's like a piece of where I'm at. Where I'm at is chaotic, messy, quite often horrible, but also really beautiful. And so, like I was saying, I was really sick last night. I was trying to just be okay with the fact that this is what it is right now. So yeah, duality, man.
Next time you can call me. Like,
thank you.
Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously. Don't deal with that alone by yourself.
Oh, thank you.
This was like the most wholesome episode I've had. Usually it's a lot more, like, we did have like charged moments and everything, but it was like so wholesome, which is quite nice. Like, yeah, that's how I feel about Amber. Like, she's so wholesome. Honestly, on God. Okay.
I actually have so much rage deep down. I'm just trying to alchemize it.
That's why you're so wholesome. I have so much. You think I don't have rage?
Yeah, we've all got rage. Just alchemize it.
Yeah, it's how you go about it, and with different people, certain like parts come out at different times, and their environment, and blah blah blah. I could talk for 7 more hours, so I won't. Thank you guys for ever tuned in to another episode of The Taboo, The Nuanced, and Everything Conservative Parents Want You Listening To. It's a reminder that it's every Tuesday from 1 to 2 p.m. UK time on the Forge Radio name on Radio Box, the app, under Forge Radio. I also upload it on YouTube. And yeah, thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
I'm so sad that I'm so late, just because I could talk for another like hour. Like,
no, you're fucking shitting me.
did it not record?